triggers. Has anyone heard of triggers before?
Yes.
Bhargav, who said yes?
Sorry? Me, I
Yeah.
said Bhargav.
Okay, can you tell me what exactly does, or what is a trigger and how does it work?
So trigger is basically, you can say, something like a notification hook where we are deciding to execute something based on a certain condition. For example, let's say that we have a set of tables which are normalized. We have done a third normal form or something, and we are deleting the particular record from a table which stores details. So if we are deleting one entry from that one table, then entries related to that particular record in other tables don't make sense. So we can create a trigger that if certain record is deleted from this table, then delete relevant records from other table as well.
Perfect. That's a good example, Bhargav, and mostly we use triggers for that only. But there are a few things that I would like to add on top of that. So let me start with what is a trigger. A trigger is nothing but a stored procedure, similar to a stored procedure, but you can think of it as a system stored procedure. And another difference between a trigger and a stored procedure is that a trigger is attached to a table. A stored procedure is not a database object that is attached to a particular table. It can be interacting with multiple tables at the same time. Okay. Now, another thing is triggers execute only with respect to a table when a certain when an insert, update, or delete occurs, you can say. When either of these three things happens with respect to a table on which the trigger is attached, then the particular trigger is executed or it is triggered. And whatever action we are trying to perform with respect to the trigger, then that happens. Now, what Bhargav was trying to tell you, let's say there is a let's take an employee table. There is an employee table, and then there is a employee address detail table. So now what Bhargav was trying to do was Bhargav was trying to escape the policy. How? He said that I would like to add a record first in the address table and then in the employee table, because I know the address of the table. It's just that I don't happen to know some of the employee details, let's say his age or something, but I have all of his address details, so I can enter the address data first. So he's trying to hamper with the system in a way that without entering the employee record, he would like to enter his address detail. And that's where trigger will come into picture and it will stop him to do that. Why? So let's see, he adds an address detail of an employee ID XYZ, which does not exist in our main employee table. Then trigger alerts that the record that you are trying to enter within address table, there is no corresponding record to that in the employee table. But certainly, I mean, we have to establish that kind of relationship also within those two tables with the foreign key constraint, or let's say some other kind of relationship also we can establish, like how would say you can keep a check also. You can apply a check constraint, or foreign key would be best in this particular case. I'd say a foreign key constraint on the basis of employee ID. Now let's say if a primary key for that particular foreign key does not exist in the employee table, then the trigger would give an error that corresponding record does not exist and the transaction fails. So he cannot bypass that mechanism. And that's how a trigger works. And that's how we use generally triggers in our day-to-day life. Another way we use triggers is, let's say if let's go the other way around. If he enters the employee details in the main table, but he does not enters the data in address table, then also the trigger will get into the picture and it will ensure that, hey, if you're entering an employee, if you're adding an employee in our main table, please add its corresponding address detail in the address table. But I mean, it can be certainly null, but it cannot happen that there does not exist any record for that employee in employee address detail table. That's not possible. So I certainly, if we have established the foreign key constraint there. So it works in both the way that it ensures data integrity is there. Employees, all the records are entered, depend no matter in how many table we have separated it. If those tables are related with each other and have a particular trigger on top of that, then it ensures that the record are entered successfully for an employee in all the tables, no matter how many attributes do we have. Any question? Okay, so how does the trigger work? Trigger to update the stock when product is sold. Simple. Stock market data example. Where the way we create a trigger is first create trigger name on table name, like to which we would like to attach the table name to which we would like to attach this particular trigger. Then we would like to mention for what condition, for an insert on this table, for an update, or for a delete on this table. Then you just write as begin the SQL statement, but that's what you need to do, and then just an end. So we are creating a trigger tr inventory update on sales table for insert whenever a record is inserted into a table as, then we begin. Then what we are trying to say, as an record is inserted into a table, update invent set stock quantity to stock quantity minus select quantity from inserted. So we are basically at runtime. We are checking whatever the quantity they have inserted, just minus that from the previous quantity. So let's say if you have sold something out, right? There were 10 stocks and you have sold out 5 stocks. So what it would do is it will update the record 10 minus 5 as soon as you have sold 5 stocks or X number of stocks. It will basically minus the records from their existing number and then update it. As simple as that for your particular PID. Makes sense, right? This is essentially in the backend. If you have used Zerodha or any other stock trading platform, this is how these things work. Literally. Like, does any one of you use any stock trading platform, like or mutual funds or future and options, anything at all?
Yes.
I'm sorry, who said yes? Bhargav?
Yeah, Bhargav.
Okay, yeah. So essentially, yeah, this is how it happens in the backend. Then let's have the other trigger, trigger to delete the order if the product is deleted from the inventory. So let's say this particular table, what we are taking as an example, let's say if an inventory and X product existed and you have received an order with respect to that product, but let's say suddenly you have received the product, but now you have received the order, but now that product does not exist in the inventory anymore. Then you would like to cash back the user and tell him that that product does not exist in the inventory anymore, right? So for that also you can set a trigger, and this is how you can do it, that create trigger tr sale delete on invent the table name for delete as begin. Delete from sales where PID is equal to select PID from deleted, like whichever product ID that you have deleted. Third, let's say we are taking trigger to update the stock when the order quantity has been updated. Okay, so we have taken example of an insert and a delete. Now we're taking example of an update. Now, if you are trying to update the quantity that you were trying to sell, so we are taking that example now. This time we are creating a trigger tr stock update to on sales table for update as begin. Now update stock set S quantity, basically the stock quantity that you were trying to sold, S quantity plus select star from deleted. So whatever you have deleted, just select the quantity from that add it to your previous quantity, and where your PID is the PID that you are deleting it from. And then you're trying to set, I mean, vice versa is also there. Either you can add or you can delete, depending upon that. It will do the respective statement. Yeah, your quantity would be updated, stock quantity would be updated. And another example that we have is trigger to check and update the stock when the order is placed. So I'll just say, take a look at it and just do not miss this rollback statement. So what we are trying to do here is we're creating a trigger TR invent check on sales for insert as again we are declaring two variable QS and QR. Where we are setting QR is quantity from inserted, and we are setting QS to quantity from invent, where your PID is the PID. And then we are checking if your QS is greater than equals to QR. So your stock quantity is basically greater than or equals to the quantity that you have. Then we are trying to update inventory when stock quantity is equal to stock quantity minus the quantity that you're trying to sell. Where PID is your PID. And then we are committing this transaction. If let's say if this block does not execute successfully, then all the things that we have done gets rolled back after that. In else we have put rolls back. So if does not exist, if does not execute successfully, then in else we are rolling back everything to the previous point where we started this transaction, and nothing will be changed. Any doubts? You can just type no in the chat. Okay. That is basically end to our session, and the RCPO bootcamp is basically completed. Now I would like to give you just some final tips, and you should be good to go. So your basic SQL level is done. I think you know about most of the database objects now. Let's just go through them one by one. I'm gonna just ask you questions randomly. So can we execute or can we connect to a database without a server? Or if you would like to have this question this way, why do we need a server?
We need a server to store all the data.
Okay.
Is remotely we can access if we have.
Okay. So let me give you an analogy. So let's say you are hosting a website. It is hosted on a particular server. And then whenever someone tries to access that particular URL, they are basically visiting that server, getting all the data from that server. And the website is showcased in their particular local platform, which is Edge browser, Chrome browser, or any other browser, correct? Similarly, we need to host this database somewhere, right? We need a platform to host. So similarly, the database exists on a server. If there would be no server, then where we would host our database. Now, you must have heard a term called serverless. So generally nowadays, what we are doing is everything is on cloud. They are Azure SQL managed DB instance, AWS SQL managed DB instance, and those are managed instance. They are still on the server. But the reason they are called managed instances is that you do not need to go into the hassle of managing the server itself. You just get a DB instance on an XYZ server, which is managed by the AWS, Azure, GCP, or some other third-party vendor. So those are managed instances, but certainly they are also hosted on server. And the serverless concept is altogether different. That way but we have studied the database with respect to that. There is no serverless thing as such. Whenever we are talking about serverless, we are talking about function-based approach that will be charged on the basis of a number of calls, how many times we are calling a function or an API. That's generally how a serverless approach works in today's world. Excuse me. So any questions? Why do we need a server, or where do we host a database, or why do we need a database on a server and not anywhere else? So if someone asks you the importance of a server with respect to a database, database cannot, I mean, it has to be hosted somewhere, right? It can be a virtual private server. It can be a dedicated server. It can be a reserved server. It can be a shared server. It can be a cloud server. I mean, there can be can be hosted on any XYZ type of server, but it needs a server to be hosted, using which we will access our database or databases. Okay. Now, within a server, can we have multiple database?
Yes.
Okay. Now, are you aware of these 4 different system databases? This is our master database, which will have all our execution logs and everything, whatever we are doing, XYZ activity on this server with respect to any database. That master database will store that. Temp DB will store all of our intermediate tables, common table expression that we are writing. We are creating temporary tables, all the transaction logs that we are keeping. When I say transaction log, I mean during the time till the time it is committed, and we would like to do a rollback. It exists in the temp DB till that time. MSDB basically have all the, what should I say? It has all the system related functions and all the system related tables. I mean, so there are many concepts related to backend of a database. Let's say indexing, partitioning, logging, maintaining stats, creating a backup, creating different execution logs, batch instances, aggregated instances, query plan, optimization of query plan, and whatnot. All of those things related to the system are maintained in our MSD. And then the table, have you heard of ERD, entity relationship diagram?
Yes.
Yep. So generally, this particular, so let's say the database that we are talking about, we do create a ERD, but that feature is not there available in this particular database instance. But if you will see here, we get different options, right? Database engine analysis service. So when you connect to analysis services or any other, let's say reporting services, you get an ERD option as well. And those kind of things are stored in model. This is how system databases work. Then database snapshots are created in this particular folder, and then the different databases are showcased. Then different securities that, like, we can create multiple logins. Then have different server roles like bulk admin, DB creator. These are the default server roles that are present by default in any database server. Remember that these are server roles, not the database roles. Database roles would be different. And you can go to the database roles here. Database roles and application role. But this is a server role. So always be specific about that. The credentials, we are not able to see that. Audit log, no, we don't have anything. And server audit specification, again, we have nothing. Server objects, backup devices, nothing. We have not attached anything. So back we don't have anything. Linked servers. So the reason you create a linked server is because let's say you would like to create a backup of your current server. If your server goes down, you would like to create a fallback mechanism on another server. So what you do is you create a linked server and you keep them always in high availability and you keep them in sync. All the data is available all the time on both the servers, but one server is in passive mode or a standby mode, another one is in active mode. As soon as your active one goes down, your linked server, which is in passive mode, becomes active and becomes available to your audience or the users, whomsoever is using your application or your database. So link service is important in that particular case. Triggers we have, but not at the server level. We haven't created any triggers. Then replication, since this is a local instance, we don't have any replication factor. But otherwise, replication is how many copies of your database instance would you like to have, so that in case if one goes down, you can fall back on the other. And the polybase is a good feature that we have, but again, not in local. Then different management policies we have. X event profiler is basically if you are running any scheduled jobs or something like that, you can monitor those using X event profiler. So these are the different objects. Now within a database, there we get the database diagram, but yeah, it does not exist as of now. We do not have permission. Then we have tables. They are system tables that we are not able to see as of now. File labels, nothing. Views, again, system views, all of the different views we have. Synonyms, programmability, store procedure function, database triggers, assemblies, types, rules, defaults, sequences. We created my sequence, right? Service broker, message type, contracts, queues, services. Currently, we are using these three. Couch. Storage is, yeah, full text. Nothing we'll be able to see here. Yeah, security we have. Any questions do you have with respect to SSMS? Like you would like to know any specific object? What does it do? Why do we have it? Or any question related to this at all? If not, then I have one question for you. So let me go ahead and ask Bhargav this question. Bhargav, so let's say you have 10 tables, right, in your database. Now I want list of all the columns along with their data types. Yes, list of all the columns of all those 10 tables along with their data types with their respective table name. So I need to output something like table name, column name, data type. How can I get that?
I think schema.
I'm sorry.
We can use schema.
How can we use that? Can you guide me? What should I write? Select.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Hari, Satish, does anyone of you have that idea how to do this?
Maybe, might be table information stored in system databases somewhere.
Good. Yes. So we were talking about the system version tables and everything, that we have everything in the database. But we should also know at the same time how to query those if and when if we have a use case, the use case that I told you, right? But there is one such table that we use. See, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna have, if you want table schema as well, we can have table schema. We can have table name. column name, and then the data type. Now, let's say Bhargav asked me, Shivam, I just need all of these detail for address table and nothing else. And all I need to do is this. So it's a very useful table. You should always be aware of the information schema. It's a system table. I think I'll be able to show you this. I think it's a view rather, not a table. Information schema, yes. Currently we are using this one. It maintain all of your information related to table schema and everything. So feel free to query this or any other table. So if you would like to have information schema related to tables, you can use this one: sequence, meta, parameters, domains, domain constraint, anything. So always just go to system views, try to find whatever you are looking for from the system perspective, query them, and voila, you will have what you need. I hope this was helpful. I think I'll be on mute for 2 minutes. Just clear up your head. Try to find any question at all that you have. If you don't have any question, we can end up today's session. And yeah, thank you so much. It was really great having you guys, and I really enjoyed this bootcamp. And I would like to know your feedback. Meanwhile, you can type your feedback within the chat as well. And if you have any questions, we can take up that now. I'll be on mute for a while, for a couple of